Hi, this is Samantha Miller here to talk about evidence-based reporting. We are going to use EBR this semester to help track and report algebra student progress. So what is EBR? Basically, evidence-based reporting is going to be grades linked to standards. Our main goal is to communicate what students know, and we feel that evidence-based reporting is the best way to do this. So some of the benefits of EBR, and the main one is that it allows room for growth. Students won't be penalized for where they are starting with a skill, or if they have a low score on, say, a quiz at the beginning of the unit. Scores are not averaged. Instead, we will be using the most recent rating from an assessment. So for example, if on attempt 1, a student has a low assessment score, and then maybe by take 2, they're bringing it up and showing they know a little bit more, and on attempt 3, they're finally showing that they've mastered a skill, we are going to take that attempt 3. Another example, a way to think about this, I'm a track and cross country coach. So if I were to start the season running a 7-minute mile, and that's pretty good, but say I work really hard over the course of the season, and then by the end of the season, I'm running a 5-minute mile. I want you to ask yourself, what kind of shape would I be in? Think about, am I that 7-minute miler? Or throughout the work and improvement that I've made, wouldn't you say I'm a 5-minute miler? So the question is, why would I average those times? If I averaged my 7-minute mile pace from the beginning of the season and the 5-minute mile pace at the end, that would be a 6-minute mile pace. And I don't think that's a true reflection of where my fitness would be. And I think the same goes for grading. Why would we average students' scores and essentially penalize them for where they started? So that's one of the biggest reasons why we're using EBR, is so that students can show what they know. They're not going to be penalized for not knowing it maybe on that first attempt, and that it will accurately report where they're at and then where they end up. So in PowerSchool, you are going to click on the semester grade, just like you're probably used to doing, to see all those assignments. What will be new, though, is you'll notice for all of our assessments, there will be a blue drop-down tab. So you want to make sure you click on that. If a class hasn't used EBR, they won't have this pull-down tab, so that might be new. And then once you open up the assessment and pull down, you'll be able to see the standards that are on the left and the rating scale is on the right. The biggest thing to keep in mind with EBR is that the scale is a 4-3-2-1. It is not based on points. So the scale ranging from 4 down to 1, we have 3 as our proficient. And our goal would be to have all students in that proficient area, so a 3 or higher, by the end of the semester. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that is a long-term goal by the end of the semester. So you may see, while a student is working through a unit, working with new material, it's typical to be in that 2, that approaching range. Okay, nothing wrong with that. Again, we know with learning, it takes multiple times to master a skill. So that 2 is a very common score as we're going through the unit. And everyone learns at a different rate. It might take some students 2 or 3 attempts to show that proficiency. It may take students 4 or 5 attempts. So we might be in the next unit or maybe a month down the road before a student is able to show that 3 or 4. But it doesn't mean that they can't do that just because the unit has ended. So in terms of calculating a final letter grade, what we'll look at is all the different standards. will funnel down into a domain or a unit score. And then at the very end of the semester, we'll look at all the units together, and those will count towards the final grade. Now, one thing to keep in mind that the standard scores can change throughout the course. Therefore, the standard scores might be changing, and then the domain or the unit scores may change as well. So that's the continuous opportunities for students to show their learning. So what you see after Unit 1, again, may change based on work in the next month or two when students are ready to show, if they weren't quite at proficient yet, they'll have those continuous opportunities to show that. So just keep in mind throughout the semester, things might be changing. Okay, there is an actual chart to see what amount of threes and fours how does that work into a traditional an A, a B, a C. We still will be giving letter grades, so that's not changing, but because we're not averaging scores and points on each assessment, it does look a little bit different. So students will have a copy of this chart in our Google Classroom, so they can reference and take a look at each of the categories and see how many proficients do I need, and so on, or even how many approachings and what grade that would equal. So, and as you can see, you don't need to be solid fours across the board and be at that extremely high level for an A. We said our goal was proficient, so any combination, those threes and fours, is an A. And then you could still be proficient and have mastered most of the skills. There might be one skill that we're still approaching in, but students can still earn a B if you look at some of those different combinations there. There's a 2 sprinkled in, and same thing with the C. So I don't think it's extremely hard standards. In a way, I feel like this actually rewards students and gives more opportunities for A's and B's than averaging grades. And remember, students will not be penalized for grades early on if they show improvement. So the goal is to have all students at those threes and fours by the end of the semester. So finally, a couple things to keep in mind, that when you see those scores in PowerSchool, it's just a rating scale. It's not points. And that way we're not averaging points as well. So if you see a 3 or a 3 or 4, remember that's like an A and a B range. I know it's very different. Typically, like if you saw 3 out of 4 points, that would be a 75%, and your mind's thinking C, but it's different now that 3 is proficient. That's more of this A B range. So we'll have to kind of shift a little bit here on that thinking, but that's why that chart on the previous slide was really helpful. And again, all grades are kind of this in progress. We're working towards our long-term goal at the end of the semester, so things can always change with those continuous opportunities provided to students. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to email me at samantha.miller@bps101.net. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I know it's new or different for some students. This is their first time experiencing evidence-based reporting, so it's understandable that there might be questions, so feel free to reach out. Thanks.